Welcome to the latest episode of the Shell Report, your weekly show through the 2025 season, diving into Maryland football. I'm Ahmed Gafir, back again with Ben Strober and Ricky Welch. And with the calendar officially turned to November, Maryland will now look to avoid a 5-game slide in what is shaping up to be a must-win game this weekend against Rutgers. Despite the bye week, Maryland proved no match against second-ranked Indiana, falling 55-10 in the homecoming game. Got out to a quick start thanks to Jamari Glasker's interception, giving the offense a short field, but it couldn't capitalize. Sean O'Hare kicked a 24-yard field goal. Nebraska scored the next 20 points to end the first half to take a 20-3 lead into halftime. Maryland looked to show a little bit of signs of life to open up the second half with a touchdown on that opening drive. And then Indiana scored the next 35 points to end it 55-10. Another tough loss, but against one of the nation's best. But again, like we said, dropped fourth straight game. We'll start with takeaways. Ben, what stuck out to you in this one?
I think Malik just really looked like a freshman, and maybe the past couple weeks we've seen some of the little regressions that you might see in a freshman quarterback who's going through his first stint in Big Ten conference play. And at times it does look like a night and day difference. And Saturday certainly wasn't his best day against this really good Indiana team. We knew that the Hoosiers would come in with a really good pass rush. They'd get after it, put good pressure on him, and just not great decision making overall from Malik. And, it's been a theme over the past couple of games where he struggled at times. And I'm not willing to say that, the sky has kind of fallen in on him this year, because he certainly has a good opportunity to get back on track against a poor Rutgers defense this weekend. But it just begs the question, how are we going to see him respond? Because it's tough to be in the position that he's in right now, where the team has really fallen over the past couple of weeks. And a big reflection of that is because of quarterback play at times. They've struggled offensively to get things going, and the blame typically points toward the quarterback. And I know they couldn't run the football worth a damn on Saturday, so that was obviously a massive problem, and probably was one of the reasons why they struggled so much in the passing game. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got from it. Malik probably had one of his worst games, looked like a freshman out there, but this is a good opportunity for him to bounce back, and I think he will ease some of those qualms that I've had over the past few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to take away from this one, and most, if not all, of it's negative. I kind of want to also go with Ben here, just the offense as a whole. We can start with Malik, obviously the quarterback. He's regressing a little bit. It's seeming like Ben said, the freshman quality is coming out a little bit, and he's been put in a terrible spot here. He has no run game to go on and get any momentum off on his side. And I was at the game, and both of those picks in the first half were right in front of me, right around the 30, 40-yard line there. And they just weren't great throws. That specifically that first one, right into the defender's hand, didn't really see him there. But and you look up again, right around 50% completion percentage, not great in the offense. Can't capitalize on field position. Obviously, the interception from Glasgow in the first, like Ahmed said, and then they got the ball inside the 50 on a little bit of a muff punt on the second drive. They just couldn't capitalize. The whole stadium just felt like when that didn't go 3 points out of those two drives, just felt like probably not going to get it done. And that's been happening against these big teams the last few years. Can't capitalize on opportunities. And then obviously the run game, something's got to change. It's just you can't be going, even if they had a decent run game, you may be looking at a 7-1 football team. I don't know if it's the scheme or the talent on the field on both the offensive line and the running backs. It's going nowhere, and it's not helping Malik at all. In his passing game, he's getting a little bit of happy feet here, and they try to run him once. Looked like he was getting the first, and he fumbles that one, and they take it back for 6. And then the weapons too. Farouk and Fleming were kind of the two guys who were kind of pointed out as maybe big targets, and they just haven't lived up to the bill. I don't know if we put up a little too much pressure on them or too much hype into them, but the receivers aren't getting separation. Those two aren't filling the bill, and Malik's starting to look like a freshman. Look around, not much great on the offense at all in any three phases of the game. And Loxley, as an offensive guy, not a great look here in year 7. I know there's a lot of new talent, a lot of freshman talent, and new talent coming through the portal. But you'd like to think as an offensive guru that he could get the most out of his players. And right now it's just not working. And the defense, on the other side, I'm sure, Alan, you're going to get into it, got ran all over too. And it's just not a great recipe for success against a great Indiana team.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of mentioned it, just kind of like, Malik kind of, I would agree, kind of regressing. But again, and Locke's kind of talked about it during the press conference again this week. It's not the first time, but the inability to run the ball. And, Loxley, he says, Ballant isn't running the ball well. It's the ability to do both. Well, Maryland really isn't showing the ability to do both right now. But DeJuan Williams, Nolan Ray rank among the worst four Big Ten running backs in yards per carry. I believe they're one of three who are averaging under 4 yards per carry this season. So, yeah, and again, the run game, going into the fourth quarter, Maryland had 17 rushing yards. Malik has been asked to do a lot for Maryland this year, and I think it's starting to catch up. You're starting to see some of these Big Ten defenses kind of adapt. And again, this is Indiana defense. They have a lot of veteran pieces. Obviously, Mike Loxley, he referenced, a lot of the redshirt juniors, redshirt seniors, the experience in on Indiana's side as Maryland opted to go the younger route. And again, I'm not saying that was the reason why, but the inability to run the ball at all this year, I think was the most glaring in this one. But then on the other end, Fernando Mendoza, obviously you going into it. You have Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt. Surratt there is obviously battling some health injuries in that one against Maryland on Saturday. But for Indiana, I mean, it was 369 rushing yards before Mendoza kneeled out the clock there to end it. I thought the tackling, again, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago against Nebraska, 24 missed tackles. This week you have 17 missed tackles. So starting to see some of the same issues kind of come up. And Loxley's talked about it, with a young team that you try and figure out, plug in all these holes and fixing the temporary issues. But unfortunately, I don't know how efficient that is when they continue to come up again. 2-3 weeks later, is that really efficient? And again, for I thought this Maryland defense, there was a lot of pieces in the front seven, but the inefficiency in the front seven, I just thought was unacceptable to allow nearly 600 yards, let alone on your homecoming game. I thought is a major setback for a defense that really showed a lot of promise through the first half of the season. So I'd say, kind of like Ben said, I think this is kind of this weekend is an opportunity for Maryland to, kind of get right, against a Rutgers team that, has some potential, especially on offense. But, when you look at Rutgers defense, I think Maryland's offense, the inefficiencies, whether it's in the red zone, whether it's on third downs. I believe in the last 3 games, Maryland has 3 touchdowns on 14 red zone opportunities. So, obviously improving in the red area and turning some of those field goals into 7. And like we said earlier, turning that Jamari Glasgow interception where you have advantageous field position to open the game against Indiana, and you gain 2 yards on the opening drive for that 24-yard field goal. So a lot that went wrong. And again, for Maryland to kind of have this result coming out of the bye week is, again, a familiar feeling for fans, but nonetheless disappointing when you mention going up against a coach that's now in his second year with the program. So definitely a tough result, but like we said, a get right opportunity this weekend. Go on the road against Rutgers, 2:30 p.m. kickoff. Weird time slot. Kickoff or TV is on FS1. Maryland has won 3 of the last 4 against Rutgers. Of course, last year the Scarlet Knights came away in College Park with a 31-17 win the week prior to the final home game of the season in the midst of a long losing streak to end the 2024 season. This year, Rutgers sits at 4-5 overall, 1-5 in conference play. Their lone win, a comeback 27-24 win against Purdue, fell at Illinois this past week, 35-13. Like we said, a couple players to watch on the offensive side of the ball, a pair of receivers, KJ Duff, Ian Strong, running back Anton Raymond, guy from a guy Maryland is familiar with out of high school. And then QB Ethan Kaliak Manis, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this season. Like we said, Maryland is opened up as a slight underdog on the road, but is now favored by 1.5. We will start with you, Ben. What are you looking forward to seeing this weekend?
How's this defense going to respond to its worst showing of the year? And obviously, that's the most potent offense you might face this entire season, Indiana. And I'd probably just go on record right now and say they will face. Maybe outside of Michigan will be another pretty interesting challenge. But I got a Heisman candidate on the other side. And for a defense that we gave so much flowers to early on in the season saying this could be the difference in what gets this football team maybe over the hump from where they were in years past. They do a lot of things really well. But then at the end of the day, maybe it's kind of a testament to the way Maryland's been as a program over the last 7 years. It's like a one step forward, two step back thing because you're forcing turnovers on that side of the football. That has not been a problem for this Maryland team all year. They've actually, in plenty of these games, won the turnover battle and not won the game. But then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you're forcing the turnovers, but then you can't tackle. So like it seems like at the end of the day, you're doing one thing well, but you're doing something else so detrimental that it hinders what you're able to do. And against this Rutgers team, who's obviously not had a great year so far and has not started off very well in conference play, there's still damage that can be done at the quarterback position. Callie McManus, and then other talent as well on the offensive side of the football for Rutgers. That at this point in the season, you kind of like are in an identity crisis if you're Maryland. You say, which version of this Maryland defense, like, should we really believe is the real version? Because the way things were looking through the first half of the Washington game, you're saying, wow, this defense is elite. This team is elite. And since then, you just never have really felt the same way about this defense. A step forward, but multiple steps back. This is a chance. Can you prove yourself against an opponent that actually you are favored to be better than this week for the first time in a little bit? I don't know, but I'm really looking at the defense and seeing how they bounce back from their worst performance the entire season.
Yeah, I think that's that is a pretty good point there, and it's kind of going back and forth between looking at really the secondary, and I didn't think the secondary played awful. Obviously, Indiana, like we said, they have some playmakers, but I think this week, you go against a pair like Duff and Strong, and being able to kind of take away those big plays, like we mentioned, Duff being a 6'6" sophomore receiver with that big playability. When Ian Strong went out, he had a 241-yard game for 6 catches against Purdue, one up in the history books for Rutgers among offensive skill players there. Then Ian Strong has posted 100-yard receiving games this season. He has 5 catches in 5 games, at least 5 catches in 5 games this season. So it's going to be pretty clear, what Rutgers is going to be looking to do this weekend. Can Maryland secondary really respond? 1 week, after Jalen Husky, that safety rotation took a hit with Husky out in that first half. That secondary will be back at full strength this week. So I think that'll be interesting. But I think the other aspect is, the red zone, just efficiency overall for this offense. I do think that this is kind of a chance. I think it sounds kind of crazy, but to say Maryland can run the ball, Rutgers' run defense is not good, and I think that there could be opportunities for Maryland to kind of create some flash plays on the ground. We'll see, if that kind of comes to fruition, and I think after, at this point in the season, we'll see it before we believe it. But again, I think just really the third down offense, red zone, like we talked about earlier, those are both areas that Rutgers is among the worst in the nation. And I think that, like we said, like Ricky said earlier, some of these skill players, Jalil Farouk, Octavian Smith, we've seen flashes. Jalil Farouk looking for some of that consistency. Shalik Knotts was targeted 14 times against UCLA and was held without a catch against Indiana. So getting some of these guys active. Dorian Fleming, he has 3 combined catches in the last 2 games. So getting your skilled players involved and being able to move the chains, I think that's kind of an opportunity for Maryland to really build and kind of grow, kind of take that next step. And that this is a chance for them to really gain confidence as you kind of go into this last stretch of a couple games here. But I think that this is an opportunity for really the offense to kind of get into its stride. How do they open? Again, like we said, against Indiana, they opened up that second half with a touchdown scoring drive, and then were held scoreless the rest of the way. I believe it was 5-3 and outs against Indiana. So excited to see how this offense kind of responds, but I do think that there are some opportunities for Maryland to kind of take advantage of a busted Rutgers defense. Ricky, what you got?
Yeah, I think in terms of the biggest storyline heading into the week is it's crunch time. It's crunch time. I know Ben's got the cereal box behind him that says it. Crunch time. Where does Maryland stack up with the bottom to middle of the conference? I mean, it's Rutgers. This is a team you should be kind of in the same realm as, unfortunately, and they've played some solid middle of the pack teams to good teams in Washington and Nebraska, and they were close. And then they play a really good team in Indiana and lose, and beat a bad team in Washington in Wisconsin. So where are they at? And then is this a loser leaves town match? Greg Schiano and Mike Loxley. Is the loser going to get fired? I mean, this is, the year 7 now, and the noise is getting pretty loud. I mean, obviously the student section had what they had to say, and it was a little bit of a testy presser on Tuesday. And yeah, it's year 7, and to paraphrase what you've been saying, Ahmed, it's year 7. There's a lot of young talent, so should we have patience, or is patience running thin in year 7 based on results? And it's kind of between a rock and a hard place here with Loxley. Do you want to keep him and potentially keep all this young blossoming talent that he has? I mean, down the list, Ely, Malik Washington, the 2 edge rushers now, Delholm, some Jalen Gilchrist, maybe keeping Daniel Wingate. Are they tied to Loxley, or do you go out and say, okay, the results haven't been there, and let's bring in a new coach, and maybe there's risk there that we have a little bit less talent and that talent leaves, but maybe we have a gritty team and we, play hard and win a couple games here and then, and down the line that he has a talented team, we can rebuild from there? Or do you want to keep Loxley with this group we got right now and say, hey, this year wasn't too great in terms of results, wasn't a lot of expectations either, but let's let this young talent blossom with Loxley and see where it goes? I would like to get your guys' opinions on that too. Where do you guys kind of side? I'm on team keep Loxley for this, but I know there's been a big chatter amongst the fan base, so I want to let you guys know. Chime in.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair conversation. I mean, last week, I don't know that I've heard student section chant "Fire Loxley" before. I think that especially during homecoming, it's a humbling look. I do think that if Maryland, if you figure out a way to get to a bowl game, I think you build on that again. For the fans that say the no name bowl games, I don't really understand that. Maryland doesn't have a history of going to the college football playoffs or one of these top premier bowl games year in year out, and going to a bowl game year in year out. If you do it this year behind this young talent, you take a macro perspective, and that's 4 bowl games in 5 years. So I do think that there's ammo there, but I will say on the flip side, 4-game losing streak, like you said, that Tuesday press conference definitely was interesting. Definitely, got some probably some harder questions and a little bit more authentic answers than many are used to. But I do think that if Maryland drops this weekend, I do think it has a chance to kind of get a little bit serious. So we'll see. I don't like throwing around must win a lot. Like I do think that there's an element to every game is equally weighted, because every game, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. But this weekend really feels as close to a must-win for Loxley and for Maryland as it really has ever been.
I've been thinking about this with how college football has been this year. So many head coaches have gotten canned by these big-time programs, a ton of buyouts. And I know that's not even necessarily the conversation we have here at Maryland, but if you're Jim Smith at this point, with how many openings there are and where Maryland would actually rank amongst the openings for a top-tier guy, if that's what you're looking to swing, if you want to get one of these guys in a lower conference like a Signetti and build up from there, or do you take a swing on a proven winner that's either lost their job somewhere else or just isn't coaching anymore? Like, Maryland probably doesn't fall in like the top 8 of jobs that are going to be available. And if you're Jim Smith, do you say to yourself, is it even worth it to go and try and hire in this cycle, or do you run it back one more year with Loxley, and if it continues to be a lot of the same stuff, then you try to get into that next cycle? Hopefully you don't have as much competition going at it right here, just because you're competing against LSU right now, Penn State, a lot of other big-time programs that have fired their head coaches this year. It's not going to be easy for Maryland just to land some upper echelon head coach that's going to turn things around real quick, because I don't know, the way college football is just so volatile right now. And last year, Indiana was really what opened my eyes to the way the sport has completely changed. I'm like, hold on a second. They got this first-year head coach, and they're better than we've ever been in my whole life? That's just how this sport is now. It's very year to year at this point, and that's why a lot of these head coaches that were so successful at previous points just haven't been able to get it done the same way, and you get judged on a year-to-year basis right now, and I'm wondering if that's going to be the same fate for Loxley. However, if they do lose out this year, I don't see it being really hard of a decision for them to make to fire him. But if they get to 5 or 6 wins, I do think he actually probably comes back.
Yeah, I do think, if you lose out, two conference wins in 2 seasons is tough. So I think it will definitely be interesting. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think, a couple people, just, side conversations. They mentioned it's kind of frustrating when you look around the country and you look at, Brian Kelly's record at LSU. Granted, the same with James Franklin. And you see these programs say, well, winning isn't enough. Or winning the big games, that's kind of where we need to take that next step. And then you kind of look at Maryland 55-10 for your homecoming game against a coach like you said, Kurt Signetti. He's, I think there's a lot of respect for him in college football, but there's definitely a lot of anger. Just the fact that he can turn the program around in year two. That accelerated the clock for a lot of coaches, and with the amount of money that is being thrown around, yeah, no, it is fair, and you're right. Seeing people say, maybe Oklahoma State, I know they're open, but maybe Maryland's a slightly better job than them. Maybe Virginia Tech. I think that'll be kind of comparable, but again, I think Maryland gets to a bowl game. I don't think this is a conversation, but like we said, I think that this one is as close to a must-win as possible. So we will dive in to see if we think Maryland will do it this weekend. But first, we are sponsored by Catalyst Hot Dog. Sponsored by Catalyst Hot Dog, the catalyst to the game. Catalyst brought the Jersey Dog to the DMV, featuring premium, dry-aged, black Angus all-beef hot dogs made in Maryland, served with handmade toppings, including hot onions, relish, and their signature Texas chili sauce. And don't miss their original garlic knot dogs. Catalyst always offers vegan dogs as well as gluten-free buns because Catalyst has food for everyone. Make sure you find them in CQ Stadium in Section 14, in the Xfinity Center in Section 210, and make sure to tell the people a hot dog is a sandwich. And with that, we will kick it off with score predictions. Ben, we'll start with you.
Uh, 27-23 Rutgers. I've said it the past couple weeks. Until this team proves to me that they can win a football game, I can't pick them to win a football game right now. And Rutgers is obviously the worst of the teams they've played in recent weeks, but this team's in a rut. I don't know if it falls into the category where it's not salvageable at this point, but maybe a win or a better performance could get this team back on track the way it needs to. But after they fell at UCLA and had that final drive, after you finally get an offensive drive going in that one, and then you just give it up right away and lose the game at the buzzer and a field goal, it's kind of like that. Just kind of feels like a nail in the way this program where it was trending at this point. But if Maryland wants to get this one done against Rutgers, I think you got to find a way to get Malik in rhythm. He's obviously been struggling the past couple weeks. Some of the regression has been there. Try to get him going early, get his confidence back to where it needs to be, because if you continue to have it dwindle the way it has been, especially later in these contests, I think that leaves you susceptible to a rough one offensively, and you got to score enough points against this Rutgers defense to have a chance.
Oh, yeah, good thing for you, Ben, being a little pessimistic. I get too optimistic sometimes. I really didn't want to picture a world where we're looking at 4-5 with another loss to Rutgers and what the repercussions could be for the state of the program after that. But I think, like you said, offense got to score. It's got to get going. There's not much. This pretty simple run game. Just got to get yards. I mean, there's not much more to analyze on the run game. It just hasn't worked. And on the flip side, for Rutgers offense, they have a veteran quarterback, they have a strong running back, and have two great receivers. KJ Duff's been lighting it up. So I think they're going to be able to score on our defense no matter what. So, it's time for the offense to match them, and you're going to have to score here. Defense you can score against. Rutgers has allowed seems like 30 points a game. You look up and down their scores throughout the year, including like 30 to Ohio in week 1. So I know that's a while ago, but the offense just got to go. Malik's got to get his confidence up. It's a worse defense to be playing. Hopefully the receivers can take advantage of another great secondary here. You just got to score. And I think they will do it enough to win 31-24, Maryland.
Yeah, I have a weird one. I think when you look at this matchup and you kind of take all, the variables out of it, I do think that Maryland has the talent to beat Rutgers. I think that Maryland does match up well. Um, I had Maryland pulling this one out 34-28, a little bit more high scoring. I think the over under on DraftKings was 52, 53 and a half. So a little bit higher than that. But again, I feel like there's, you know, I wouldn't say that, obviously pressure. I wouldn't say that, the fan outside noise. I think that is exactly what it is when it comes to Maryland. That I think it is outside noise, but I think there is a lot of focus to really be able to get back on track and get this. And again, I do think that Maryland kind of has some of these opportunities on both sides of the ball to kind of get Kelly McManus out of rhythm a little bit with Zahir Mathis and Cindy Stewart. Zahir Mathis was pretty limited against Indiana, so should be back with more better availability this week. But again, getting this front seven activated, we'll see how the secondary responds, and front seven tackling. I think that obviously has to improve to keep Rutgers' offense one dimensional. But I do think that Maryland stacks up well. Like I said, I do think that they get to 5. They keep this thing alive and keep the bowl aspirations alive, and we will see. I think that again, I think this is a swing game, but like I said earlier, this is as close to a must-win game for Maryland. Kickoff is at 2:30 p.m. this weekend on FS1. Make sure you stay locked in over on InsideTheBlackandGold.net for all your Maryland news with Big Ten football officially here. Basketball season picking up steam and recruiting set to close out in less than a month.